You're listening to Flying Casual, a Star Wars podcast. Here's your host, Michael Canterbury.
Casual fam, welcome to a very, very special episode. A little treat for you all and myself. Things might look a little different here if you're on YouTube, may even sound a little different on the podcast. That could be because we're doing this podcast via Skype. And if you're on YouTube, you're going to see a couple handsome gentlemen here with me as well. I'm not including myself in that. So these guys are going to bring in the YouTube videos or the YouTube viewers for us on this one. So if you are listening right now on the podcast, go to the YouTube page, subscribe to that thing. There's some fun stuff on there. So, but this is a very special episode. And it's our first of hopefully many monthly special podcast with our casual Patreon fam. And today I have with me Nate Edison and Jory Webb. Now, all of us aren't really good at Skype talking. So, Jory, how you doing, my brother? How's things going?
Going really well. Really, really well. The kids are in bed.
Let's
hopefully
go.
no interruptions, and hopefully everything goes smooth.
Dude, that's a staple on the podcast now with Luke and his two children and a dog and a cat, and I think there's a goat in the house. So there's a lot going on. So we balance this well. So hey, you need to run out, no need to explain. You just dart out of there, and Nate and I will pick up where we left off. But Nate, how's it going, my friend?
Going pretty well. About to talk some Star Wars, so I definitely can't complain.
Let's go. So one of the staples of Flying Casual that we're just now getting into this kind of phase. I don't even want to call it phase 2 of Flying Casual because I don't even know if we're into phase 1 yet. But one of the big staples of the podcast one of the big staples I wanted on the podcast was community involvement. And we hit the ground running with that in the beginning, and we kind of got our feet under us. Had some friends come in, do some stuff now, and now we're really getting into the deep and sweaty with all the casual fam. So I want to encourage everyone to go, if you can, check out Patreon. If you would like to, offer a little donation, get in there. We appreciate that. Now we're not, begging anyone to go do that, but there's some extra content on there. Fellas, I mean, have you enjoyed some of that? I mean, we'll call it PG-13, right? Material
Yes,
on the Patreon. Not bad, right? So just some interesting, candid stuff that isn't out there on the airways, but is right here on Patreon. And these two gentlemen have been absolutely amazing in the Star Wars community because I've been interacting with them for longer than Flying Casual. So I know they're huge Star Wars fans. They're absolutely top-notch guys, and they dedicate their time and a little bit of cash to Flying Casual, and I want to make it worth their time. I want to make it worth all your guys' time. I just want to talk Star Wars with anyone I can. So this is going to be a new staple of the podcast. I'm looking forward to it, the first of many. And these guys, I can't tell you, you're going to get to know them here very well. Some of the best guys out there, honestly, in this community, in the Flying Casual community. And I am so excited that we're going to be breaking bread and talking Star Wars. And some of the stuff, you may hear me repeating things that I've said in past episodes. I don't care. Get over it. We're talking about Star Wars. We're going to talk about what we want to talk about. So, Nate, I want to get started with you. From what I'm seeing in the group, it seems like, you've been a Star Wars fan for a long time. That's what I'm getting. So tell me where that love for this universe came from.
Right. I've shared this a little bit. I know I sent in that excessively long email that I made Hollyweed and shared a little bit of it, but I honestly don't remember the exact details, and I don't think it's anything too exciting. But I think I was 4 or 5 when Phantom Menace came out in theaters, and
Nice.
my dad, who had seen the original trilogy, took me in to see it, and I probably didn't understand any of those politics, but that Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan fight, that just captivated me and got me hooked. So soon went back and watched the original trilogy. Remembered bugging my parents constantly to take me to 2 and 3 when both of those came out. And then I remember actually when episode 3 came out, I said to my mom, I'm like, I'm really disappointed that this is the end of Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think at
Yeah.
the time, since I was a kid, I was kind of disappointed about toys being discontinued, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
at
That
the
was the
same
big
time,
one.
I was sad about that. And then, 10 years later, we got Force Awakens, and
Yeah.
I remember distinctively sitting there watching that opening crawl and started tearing up just
Let's
because
go.
Star Wars was back. And
Yeah.
I know we're getting into the sequel trilogy a little bit later, but honestly, I think it was fantastic. So, yeah, I guess going back, I don't know exactly why I love Star Wars so much, but something about that first time seeing it sunk its hooks in me and hasn't let go. So,
It just resonated, right? Like, yeah,
yep.
it never. I don't know. There's always bumps in the road. There's bumps in the road with every fandom and anything that we love. It's gonna happen, and we're all aware of that. But something just keeps us. I can't even put a finger on it. I don't know what it is, but something just drives me daily to talk about Star Wars, and it's just I don't know. Even when things were tough, Last Jedi came out, you have this split in fandom. There's still folks like you guys, and through Rebel Watch, finding and getting to talk with folks like you guys that it just kept me coming back. That was a very toxic time. Did you feel any of that, or were you kind of keeping yourself out of that?
I try and keep out of it. I try and hold my tongue on most Facebook and social media just because I know how toxic the internet is.
Yeah.
But I definitely remember, I was lucky enough for The Last Jedi. I had tickets to 2 different showings on opening night, so I saw it back to back on opening night, and I came out of the theater absolutely loving it. At
Yeah.
the time, thinking maybe this might be my new favorite. I
Yeah.
think now that I've thought about it, I think Empire's still #1, but I think Last Jedi's second.
Yeah.
But and then I just started seeing some of the reactions and just the toxicity of that, and yeah, it did kind of drive me off Star Wars for a little while. And at that point, I didn't know about Rebel Watch or any of that.
Yeah.
So then I found Rebel Watch, and that really reignited that fire, and I'd say it's stronger than it ever has been. And that Facebook group has given me the chance to talk to people in a way I never have before, because I
Yeah.
have friends that are Star Wars fans, but nowhere near on the level of the guys in that group. So
I know. It's a unique thing. I tried to send friends there, and they're like, yeah, that's cool and all, but like I just don't have much to say. Yeah, Star Wars is fun. That's about it. And I just you're going out to that community. You're finding people that daily. I mean, daily. I wasn't joking when I said the notifications stopped on my Facebook. It doesn't tell me when there's notifications in the group because daily, everyone in there they're finding some way to talk about Star Wars, and it's just. God, it's so fulfilling, and I look forward just every night, just scrolling through, just finding all the fun things. It could be memes, it could be just really personal stories. It's so good. I couldn't be more than pleased that you're a part of this group, Nate, and you've been nothing but a positive force in it, and that is going to continue, and I know it.
glad to be a part.
Absolutely, Jory. Now, Jory, you've been in this community for a long time, my friend. You've been supporting since the Rebel Watch days. Even repping that Rebel Watch shirt. That's what I'm talking about. And if that's not durability right there, I mean, that thing is still going years later. I'm sure that thing's been washed a lot. Or, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's been washed a lot.
Yes, sir.
So you've been out there, man, just honestly spreading positivity. I know you've got a lot of fandoms that you love and you're heavily involved in them. But I feel like Star Wars, and correct me if I'm wrong, Star Wars seems to be the one that maybe resonates the most. So where'd that come from? What keeps it going every day?
So I started watching Star Wars the first time I was 8 years old. I started watching it with my dad, and the cool thing is that he saw it in theaters for the first time when he was 8 years old.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was kind of a really cool thing that we bonded over because we watched all 3 episodes in one day.
Yeah.
And so we got into the speculation on what was going to happen with the new trilogy, the prequel trilogy at the time.
Yeah.
And even though we knew where it had to end, we kind of just seeing where George was going to take it, and so that was a real big thing for me. And the family aspect of it was huge.
Yeah.
So my dad was really the one that got me into it in the biggest way. And then I kind of fell away from Star Wars for a minute, and I think it was just going to college and girls and things like that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sports, whatever it was, and
Yeah.
really reignited it, kind of like what Nettie just said, was the Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And that's why it ranked so high for me, is because it actually got me back into Star Wars.
Yeah.
It was a huge movie for me. I mean, I can't say it's the best movie in the world,
Yeah.
but it's a remake of 4.
Yeah.
And and it did leaps and bounds for my fandom. And and then when I was actually watching different things on YouTube and looking up speculation for The Last Jedi, that's when I found Rebel Watch.
Let's go.
And so Rebel Watch, I can explain to you how big it's been. Just
Let's
the
go.
community.
Yeah.
Because like for me, kind of like what Nettie was saying, like I don't really have friends that are into Star Wars.
Yeah.
I grew up a big sports jock, and actually
Yeah.
I was kind of a closeted nerd most of my life.
We all were
For
one
real.
time or the other.
Yeah, and so for me, even to this day, we had game nights. Actually, a few months ago, we had a game night, and it was like a take 5, and we had a bunch of just random questions about certain fandoms, and I rattle them off, and they're like, "What is going on, man?"
Who is this person?
Yeah, yeah. And so I mean, my friends are cool about it, obviously, but it's just it's
Yeah.
just things that that other people aren't into it, so you kind of keep it to yourself. But Rebel Watch really opened that up, and now obviously Flying Casual has been huge for it. Just having that community to bounce ideas off of, to speculate, to honestly just have the positive feedback. And
Yeah.
I think that that's the best thing, is having a toxic community. Really, it's hurtful, and it makes you want to just step away for a little bit. And
Absolutely.
that's why I love Flying Casual.
That's what I'm talking about. It's so great because those stories are so similar to mine, and I found Star Wars a little later than you guys. So I knew about Star Wars. I'd seen parts of Episode 4 as a kid, but never. I mean, my family couldn't tell you probably one character from Star Wars. I don't even know if they know if Darth Vader is the father of Luke Skywalker. Spoiler to anyone that's just falling upon this podcast, but I don't think they even know that information. So I had an old. I think it was when they were revitalizing the merchandise for Star Wars when the prequels are coming out. I had an old playing card game, still have it to this day, and I had some action figures, but not. I mean, never. No. I mean, who was going to show me the movies? I mean, I don't think my mom would have went and bought the trilogy for me or anything like that. I was watching Toy Story and playing with little army men, and I was big into Little League, so that it never really hit for me. But in high school, I mean, Ez and I were friends throughout, our entire secondary school years, and he kind of introduced me to it and talked about it. And then in high school, man, just watched those prequels, and I was just blown away by. I didn't even really care so much about the lightsabers or anything like that. What captivated me was the story and the good and the evil, and just I don't know, it's resonated with me ever since, and I've grown to appreciate the history of the Jedi and Mandalorians and things like that. But it was just that story of good and evil, and then just Luke growing up from nothing and becoming a savior that the universe needed. That just touched me. And so I'm a late bloomer, as we probably call it, but then I don't know what caused us to start podcasting, but we just said, let's just record ourselves talking about this. It probably won't get any listens. And then we started interacting with people, and it just kind of took off. And I was just like, there are people out there like me who want to talk about this daily, and I need to be interacting with them more. And so we made it a podcast, and it was on YouTube, and it was a weird thing. I honestly couldn't tell you how I got into podcasting. I couldn't tell you how I got into Star Wars. I owe a lot to Ez to kind of introduce me to that to that fandom and appreciate. He's a great storyteller, so he would tell stories, and I'm just like, okay. It just connected with me. So I appreciate you guys accepting folks like myself that are late bloomers, but I felt like I needed to mature a little bit and really appreciate my nerddom because it was always there. I just needed something to really blossom that. So I am so pumped to really, now that I know your guys' history, to talk about, I want to focus on newer Star Wars, that sequel trilogy. Nettie, I know, and let me. There's not a fourth person here. Nettie is Nate, so if you hear us call him Nettie or Nate interchangeably, same person. You mentioned that you really appreciate that sequel trilogy, especially The Last Jedi. What is it about this kind of new age of the films that really is captivating you and keeping you in the group, keeping you talking about it every day?
Oh man, it's a hard one. I don't feel like it
Right?
should be, but it is.
That's
But
okay.
yeah, see, I think part of it is just that it captivated me and brought me back into that series, and I definitely have to appreciate it for that.
Yeah.
For The Last Jedi, particularly why I like it, I really like some of the risks that it took. So I know that's why a lot of people didn't like it, but
Yeah.
I thought Luke Skywalker's arc in that movie was great. I thought it was unexpected.
Yes.
But I really appreciated it because of what they did for it.
Yeah.
I thought it made his character so much more human.
Mhm.
The character of DJ, I absolutely loved. Both, I kind of liked how he was kind of a reflection of Lando from Empire, but he stayed as that traitor. He didn't get that redemption.
Absolutely.
And I like his speech to Finn about, don't join and it's all a game.
Yeah.
I know some people don't want, a political tirade in their Star Wars movie, but I thought it was a really cool addition. And then Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker both just kind of round out those characters' arcs, and it just really captivated me. And I loved all of the new characters. I loved the new locations, and yeah, just something about it really clicked for me. So
heck yeah, you mentioned the Luke arc, and I know I'm like you. I found it fascinating. I'm not sure what it is, but a lot of people just they didn't like it. They thought it didn't show that powerful Luke Skywalker that we get in the Fate of the Jedi and Legacy of the Force. Like it was completely different, but I don't see it as that way. I really see there was a time where that Luke Skywalker existed in canon, right? And like you said, what The Last Jedi did was really humanize this legend. It made it so much more tangible and real because I feel like if you would have just got him, and he does epic things, he absolutely does. If you would have got him doing all these epic things with no trials, I'm just like, how is this any different than what I read in those series? And so even Mark Hamill, and as an actual human being and not the character, I loved how at first he was kind of adverse to this. That he's just like, you know what? I have concerns. And then after really seeing the entire story, be like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. This man sees failure, and that failure is one of the greatest teachers. Jory, is The Last Jedi your favorite? Because I mean, I'm feeling like Nate and I are putting it up there high. Is it one that you really brought you home, or was it, hey, I'm gonna wait for the third one to maybe see how, this is gonna go?
So at first, The Last Jedi was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And now it has dropped in my list.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I think I need to reevaluate my list that I even just made a few days ago, actually.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I think that what happened with The Last Jedi was that, Ryan Johnson went in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
And obviously it was a shocker at first, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. And then I got on that toxic train and started reading some of those comments, and I'm like, man, there's some merit to what they're saying.
Yeah.
So I started going back and watching and figuring out where they were going with certain things, and I'm like, man, there's a lot of, I don't know, I want to say plot holes, but a lot of like decision making that I didn't necessarily agree with. And and then seeing the Rise of Skywalker afterwards, it helped with The Last Jedi. And I actually, up until probably just a little bit ago, listening to you guys talk about it again, I was kind of still on that, where it's a bottom 3 for me, bottom 4.
Yeah.
But not in a way that I hate the movie. I mean, 1 through 9, I love them all. I
Yeah.
love them all for certain ways,
Absolutely.
for certain things. But I think it still probably is a bottom, maybe 4 or 5, and not because it's a terrible movie, or not because of decisions that were made, but just because I have other movies that are my go-to.
Yeah.
I'd say right now, uh, when I go on Disney Plus, here we'll plug in Disney Plus again. When I go on Disney Plus and and I'm watching a movie at the end of the night or right before I go to bed, Last Jedi isn't one of them that I just pop in.
Yeah.
But I actually watched it, man, a couple days ago, and I fell asleep to it. But the cinematic, like what it did, and the storytelling in it, whether you agree with the storytelling or not, is phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a phenomenal movie. If you just stand that movie alone, it is a great story.
Yeah.
Beginning to end.
Yeah.
So for me, it still probably sits bottom 4, but not because of me hating it. It's just, they're ones that I like better. And to go back to what you were saying, Mike, about you being a newer fan, and I think this is so important because so I coached softball, or I did until last year. I had coached the varsity team, and when The Last Jedi came out, one of the girls that was on my team, she told me that her dad told her she wasn't a true Star Wars fan because she didn't like the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And for me, I just kind of, just told her like, yeah, you are, obviously, she loves the sequel trilogy. She liked the prequels, but she wasn't really into the original trilogy, which I understand. You show people the original trilogy and all they see is like, Gone with the Wind type. I mean, it's so outdated.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a phenomenal story behind it, but what they have for special effects are nowhere near what we have now.
Yeah.
And so I understand young people not, really getting into the original trilogy. But going back to what I was saying about you, Mike, being, not necessarily a newer fan, but like a fan that got into it later in life, like
Yeah.
people telling people that they're not true fans because they haven't been a fan for 40 years. I mean, to me, it's toxic. It's toxic. And I don't agree with it at all. Star Wars should be, just like other fandoms, should be about, bringing in new people. Just because their favorite isn't the same as yours doesn't mean that, they're any less right or wrong than you are. And so, I just think that it's a super important message that we have to kind of remind ourselves. Even, you see somebody with a differing opinion than what you have, it is what it is, and you just kind of keep going with your day.
Yeah. It's crazy if you, because I've gotten that before too. Wait, you're telling me like well, listen here, folks. Half of my life I've been an insane Star Wars fan. Now I think I'm 32 years old. More than half of my life I've been an insane Star Wars fan. So you're right. It's just a lot of people can't help when they're introduced to it. But I'm always spreading the word. Coworkers, 40 some years old, they have no idea. Once again, Darth Vader is Luke's father, and that's fantastic. I'm like, oh my god, here's my box set, go watch this. And it works sometimes. Another time I had one of my employees got through 20 minutes of the Phantom Menace and said I had to stop it. I was like, oh, okay, well maybe we should have had you start with 4 and go from there. But so you're right, and it just as inclusive as the story is itself. I mean, you think about it. You have obviously humans, you have men, you have women, you have aliens, you have droids that are equally respected in this story. I mean, there's a lot of old school fans whose favorite characters are Chewbacca or, you know, Leia or R2. It's just such a variety there, and for people claiming to be such fans to give other people, you know, hate and just plain, like you said, toxicity, just you're not a true Star Wars fan or something like that. Why would you discourage someone for loving a franchise you love? You know what I'm saying? That's never made sense to me. Just in the product itself and how inclusive it is, and then how beloved this franchise has been for 40 years. Why are you pushing people away? Because they may say, is this what Star Wars is? This jerk right here, I don't want anything to do with it. Then I'm going to go be a Trekkie, or I'm going to go to Lord of the Rings or something like that. It's Holly and I just had a conversation about it. You know, we had, you know, a couple people write like really terrible reviews on iTunes, and they're suspicious for one, but I won't go into reasons why. But it's just the need to go out and be hateful towards something or someone, to go out of your way to do that. To me, that's not Star Wars. You know, you want to go to your basement, go, you know, play with your toys by yourself. Don't get on the interwebs. Don't talk to us. You know, don't bother with it, because that isn't Star Wars. Being inclusive and understanding, and our group is a plus example of that. It's just like, even if you disagree with someone, having a mature way of stating that, and then moving on with your life. Like, it's just to tear people down. I never understood it, but I could talk about that all night. You mentioned The Last Jedi, and so I want to go to Nettie. So Nettie, when the Rise of Skywalker came out, now I'll be honest. So I also like kind of the opposite of you, Jory. I went and watched The Last Jedi. We even did a live post after. I was like, guys, I'm conflicted. What did I just see? Because it was very different, and it took me time to really appreciate the story. But then I'll be honest. When I went and watched The Rise of Skywalker, I was getting a little defensive of The Last Jedi. I felt like I need to say, what do you do with JJ? I feel like you're spitting all over my movie. But I also needed some time to say, you know what? No, they're just appreciating it in a certain way, and tying it in an aspect that I'm getting defensive of The Last Jedi for all the people out there that hate it, when I really didn't need to be. Nate, when you went and watched The Rise of Skywalker, for how much you love The Last Jedi, did you have any of those feelings? You're just like, oh, I mean, when Luke, you know, grabbed that lightsaber and said what he said, was that a slam, or did you have any of that?
See, I wouldn't say I had too much. Like the Luke Skywalker moment, I think Holly said in one of the podcasts, she took that more of a showing of his growth of a character. That was my initial thought with that.
Yeah.
And then I saw some, people pointed out the other way afterwards. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. But I say for the most part, I enjoyed Rise of Skywalker without thinking that it really retconned Last Jedi like a lot of people said.
Yeah.
The only thing I would have done differently is I like the character of Rose. I think they should have, done her a little bit better in the Rise of Skywalker. But for the most part, no, I can appreciate Rise of Skywalker and still love The Last Jedi. I didn't really think it was too much of a huge retcon like I've seen some people complaining about. But
well, this may be the time to ask then. So there's one thing you guys know. You've been listening for a while. When it comes to Rey and Kylo Ren and their ship, I don't know if I'm using that right, of Reylo, I gotta know, guys, where do you stand on Reylo? Did the way they executed it in The Rise of Skywalker, did it work? Did it work? Nate, I'm gonna go with you on this one.
See, I was definitely not for Reylo. I'd say after not Rise of Skywalker, but Last Jedi, I was kind of in the opinion of I didn't see why it would be necessary. So it was kind of like, I don't want this, but if they do it, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember if it was Holly that said it first or somebody else in the group, where they pointed out, all the toxicity that could be interpreted from that relationship. And I'm like, yeah, that's a very good point. That got me like completely against it, that I really didn't want it. And I'll say Rise of Skywalker, for the most part, I think they did it really well. I think you guys have said that, maybe that kiss should have just been, a friendly hug or something else. And I agree with that. If I was taking over JJ's spot, I probably would have changed that. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I think they handled it pretty well. So
Yeah, it wasn't. It was. I mean, I was worried it may be half the movie, but it really was that those last few minutes where it felt like we're gonna give a nod to all those Raylo fans. I mean, there were a lot of nods in this movie to everyone. I feel like if you had a theory, you were right in some regard in this movie, even the Raylo fans. So I definitely have come to just accept it. I think even Chris Terrio was out there like trying to explain it as some friendly kiss, like a brother and sister thing. I was like, you just don't. You're just muddying it up. Just let it be what it is. It was a romantic thing. Just let it be what it is. Jory, I feel like Raylo may also, be I don't know if it's a sensitive subject for you, but I feel like he got something to say about it.
So Raylo, for me, at the beginning, I was so adamant against it. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I loathed that fact that people were out there that actually wanted, a toxic relationship like that.
Yeah.
That being said, what they did in The Rise of Skywalker was, and I don't want to say it was good. I guess I could say it's good.
Yeah.
What he did as far as and actually kind of rewind a little bit back to a couple episodes. So Luke said something that really resonated with me. He said, you know, them having Ray fall in love with Ben Solo
Yeah.
and not falling in love with Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Whether it's her falling in love or having an attachment or whatever you want to say that it is.
Yeah.
And that kind of, helped ease some of that for me. Actually, and that's just how I view it now. And so, that works. And with her having feelings for Ben Solo, and even with him in the movie, shredding the clothes and going back to like a Jedi garb, and having that just Jedi look.
Yeah.
That really helps with coping with that.
Yeah.
But I also do, and this sounds morbid, but I do enjoy the fact that they killed him off.
Yeah.
And just because of the fact of there would be no way for him to go back into, into society.
Yeah.
You killed millions and millions of people.
Yep.
And I mean, could be billions. You never know.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he did pass, and that was the last thing, and we can give the nod to Raylo fans.
Yeah.
And I think what made me so upset about Raylo fans was that I watched a few videos online that they were just, if you can't see it, you're an idiot, and yada 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 yada. And I dove into that toxicity, and I'm like, no, you're wrong. You're this and that. So so the way that JJ handled it, whether it be with a kiss or a hug or whatever, it did give that nod, and that's fine for me. And it kind of brings up, and I don't know if we were even going to talk about this, but the John Boyega
Let's go
tweets to and I don't agree with the way John Boyega went about things. I think that there was a lot better ways that he could have said what he meant. And you kind of need to know that, obviously, if you're a celebrity in that position. But I do agree with where he was coming from. The execution might not have been the greatest at all. But what he was saying does have merit. Of like, basically you have just this absolutely toxic relationship, and then we're going to give the nod to this, but and we don't really know what John Boyega was going through as far as things that he was being attacked for, and I'm sure, because I went through some of the comments on Twitter, and it was just ugly. I mean, racial slurs left and right, and it's just it's unfortunate, and that's the part of the fandom that I don't agree with. But truly, at that point, if you're gonna, stoop to that level, I mean, I'm not gonna say that you're not a fan, but you're not a good human being,
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
he could have handled that better, but I understand where he's coming from in that point.
Yeah, there was a great article. Can't even remember the title of it now, but it was all about him and how he handled things, and it's like when trying to silence haters goes wrong or something like that. Because he did, like, it stemmed from a place of like concern about what happened in the story. And yeah, I mean, those Raylo fans are intense. Like, it is, I mean, back even during Rebel Watch, it was intense, and I mean, you could get some serious hate for even just saying like I don't agree, and just as plain as that. And yeah, so I get it. They're passionate about it. That's cool. They saw something there I didn't quite see, and hey, it turns out you were right. There was something there. But what I like what you said about like coming to accept it, and I try to look at Rey as being very similar to Luke. Luke, yeah, he finds out that Darth Vader's his father, but Darth Vader's done a lot of really terrible things, a lot of that we didn't even see on screen that we're learning in comics, and side stories. Like, he's done a lot of terrible things, and Luke knows that. But there's a connection there as father and son that binds them, right? And he looks past all that because he sees something in him. There's something there to salvage, and I look at Rey and Ben as the same way that she saw that there through the darkest times, even when he kidnapped her, even when, she remembers he knocked her out, even when he tried to kill her. Like, she sees that and tries to look past it, and ends up, there is a connection there, whether it was romantic or not. I guess it may have been, but she looks past it, and I look at her as that kind of unyielding Luke Skywalker farm boy, just looking for the good in people, right?
Oh, definitely. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but back in the Rebel Watch days, we actually had the discussion about Raylo.
Yeah.
And I tried looking up the episode to figure, just to cite myself, and you guys read a comment from me. And I said it would be, if it did happen, I thought it would be like a tragic love story.
Yeah.
And in a way, it kind of was.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, yes, they were, I guess, like, I don't want to even say together, but I thought that it would end in a way of like somebody dying or them not being able to be together. And that's kind of, I think, the best way that JJ probably saw that, hey, how can we do this, but not, do it over the top?
Yeah.
And, to still give nods to other ways, because, even just like, we were talking about with John Boyega, in the end, she could end up being with Finn. She could end up being with Poe, I guess, or honestly, she could just end up being, with nobody and doing what the old Jedi did, and not taking significant other, and and just training or whatever she wants to do. But with being that tragic love story, I kind of feel like it was, at the end with Kylo dying, with a kiss.
There's an ultimate sacrifice there, and you knew he had to go. You knew it was coming. We're going to live, on the sand dune out our lives and drink, coffee in them, and none of that. He's got to go, and she can be the hero, and that's what I appreciated. Nettie, as maybe not the biggest Raylo fan, were you shipping anyone else? Because when I talk to a lot of people, they're like, there has to be a love story in Star Wars, and I say, not so fast. I don't believe there does. But if there was going to be a love story and not Raylo, were you shipping anyone else? I mean, C-3PO and anyone? I mean, were you shipping anybody?
3P88. Say no.
Right? The triple zero droid from Dr. Aphra and C-3PO. Like anybody?
No, I don't think I was shipping anybody. I don't think I would have minded, say Rey and Finn, or even Finn and Poe. I know There's a lot of people that wanted that. Say I definitely wouldn't have minded any of that, but at the same time, kind of like you said, I don't watch Star Wars for the love story side of it. Like, it's great in the original trilogy, that Han and Leia dynamic, but at the same time, that's not why I watch Star Wars. Like,
Absolutely.
there's other things I can watch for that. So,
and there's when you mentioned the original trilogy, I don't know if you guys have watched The Empire of Dreams. I mean, now that you have Disney Plus, it's on there if you haven't. There's a really great moment when they're on Bespin, and when Lando has Leia and Han in a room together, and they originally they had this really lengthy, mushy conversation, a lot of face to face, long kiss and this and that, and it felt, even to the directors, felt so, it just didn't fit with everything else that was going on. And they said, you know what, just kind of go out there and let's just knock this out. And it was much less intimate. It just fit way more. And that's how I look at Star Wars. There was a love story there, but that wasn't, I don't know, it didn't seem so front and center. There was some kissing, yes, and we know now that must be intercourse in the Star Wars universe, so it makes the original trilogy a little more explicit. So I'm waiting for the 2030 edit of Star Wars when Han and Leia are kissing, that there'll be a black bar over their face, right? And George would be like, yeah, so that was intercourse, and we had to black that out. Well, he has no say of it now, I guess, but Disney may. So, but they even recognize it while they were filming it, that like this is way too mushy. Like, we need to really just chill this out. Like, I don't even remember what they said to each other now in the scene, and I was like, yeah, like that's the fun, not so heavy love story that is totally fine in Star Wars for me. But yeah, like you said, Ned, it's not why I'm going. But I would have actually liked to see Rose and Finn have a little something. I mean, like you said, you were disappointed that Rose didn't get much airtime. Like, they could have found a way, right, to bring that in and give her a little more of that, I think, right?
Yeah, definitely agreed. Say, actually, when my brother saw the movie, one of the first things he texted me in his list of thoughts was that Rose and Finn should have been together. So,
yeah. They just had one moment on the top of the Star Destroyer, I think, where she like yelled for him or something. I was like, this is so unfortunate. Like, they were kissing each other, and then the Falcon, like, it just, like, I don't know. Well, someone was kissing someone. I don't know. I don't remember how that worked out, but I guess I have to watch The Last Jedi again. But so Jory, were you shipping anybody? As a non-Reylo fan?
Well, so with the Rose and Finn thing, they actually announced, or they addressed that in Resistance Reborn, and they actually addressed Finn and Rey in Resistance Reborn. So, and I don't know if you guys read that or not. I'm assuming you guys probably did, but with
quarter of the way through, I stopped it when the movie came out. Never finished it. Need to.
With the Rose and Finn thing, he just said, we just agreed that was a moment, and that they were gonna, not pursue anything further. And actually, Poe asks about him and Rey as well, and he's like, nope, just friends too. So you're like, oh, all right, And for me, actually, those were the two that I wanted, to come together. If there was going to be any sort of romance, coming into it, and it was just because, you see Finn trying so hard.
Yeah.
And you root for maybe the underdog in the situation, because you never really see Rey, return that. I mean, you can see that obviously Rey cares for Finn, but you never really see her return the sort of, compassion maybe that Finn showed to her. And it could be just because Finn grew up as a stormtrooper, and just never really had anybody else to, show him that sort of compassion. And the first girl that does, he's like, well, you know what? This is the one.
Absolutely.
She's it for me. And
the first one that didn't see me with a helmet on.
Yep, exactly.
Maybe.
Other than Phasma.
Yeah, other than Phasma,
she's terrible.
Great point. Great point.
And speaking of Phasma, that book was phenomenal. I
Yeah.
just got done reading it, and
Right.
for our book club, plug that one.
Let's
Um,
go.
And that might be one of my favorite books that I have read.
Yeah.
And I don't even read it. I just listen to audiobooks.
Yeah.
I have a ridiculous amount of audiobooks on my phone, but Phasma might be my new favorite. It's just it's really well written. You understand the backstory, and it's a phenomenal book.
Absolutely.
But going back to your question, yeah, Finn and Ray were my big ship on that one. I really wanted to see, those two come together, and if there was going to be any sort of romance here in the Star Wars universe again.
Yeah, definitely the Force Awakens. Just their chemistry too. I was just like that could work. Even if she's this epic, powerful person, I can definitely see it working. They could be a great duo. Nettie, now do you think? I mean, do you believe? Let me ask you this first: that Finn is in fact Force sensitive. Well, I guess didn't the directors and the writers come out and say, yeah, he is? Okay, so
Yeah, I
he's
think
Force
JJ confirmed
sensitive.
it, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, do you think that connection maybe then was more so they really are sensing each other in the Force and they have this intense connection, and now since he realizes this, he understands it a little more now, and that's why he's maybe toned it down a little bit.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. I say that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
See, I also know, I think in Force Awakens, Finn has a line, something along the lines of, "You looked at me like nobody else had." So, like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it too could be interpreted as like that friendship that, like,
That's right.
she saw past what he was and saw him as a good person and was willing to help him for that too. So, I definitely think that's a good way to look at it too. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. God, that is a beautiful moment. Everyone just looking past everyone's faults and I love Star Wars. So on the whole, guys, I mean, I think collectively we all really enjoyed this sequel trilogy, right? I mean, we're satisfied coming out of it, right? Now I didn't get to see Rise of Skywalker for a third time. I don't know if that thing's wrapping up in theaters soon, but I need to get Luke there because he's starting to go down the rabbit hole of the Colin Trevorrow script, and Mike, maybe it could have been even sweatier. I'm like, Luke, no, don't do it. But Nate, let me start with you. Do you feel? Some people say, this is so different from the rest of Star Wars. Do you feel like it? Do you feel like it ties in well with what we got in the past two trilogies? Is it that different to a point where you're just like, this isn't, this is completely different from what we got? Or is it just a different generation? Do you feel like it all works together cohesively?
I'd say for the most part, yeah. I definitely think, there are some aspects in the new trilogy, kind of like we touched on with The Last Jedi, that, maybe some things won't plan from the beginning that could have been done better.
Yeah.
But I'd say cohesively it does flow pretty well. And in terms of fitting in with Star Wars, I would definitely say it does. I'm not a big fan of the argument, it doesn't feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a cop out to try and justify why you don't like something.
Exactly.
Sort of that confirmation bias, I think is what that's called.
Yeah.
And I would say, in terms of like compared to the other trilogies, I do think there's a lot, like you said, different generations. I think a lot of people, they have so much nostalgia for that OT or the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Because they saw it when they were a kid, and
Absolutely.
you go into the new movie and you can't captivate that feeling as a kid. Like,
Yeah.
The prequel trilogy are my three least favorite movies now, but even I love them because they introduced me to Star Wars.
Yeah.
So like, and I accept I'm not gonna be able to get that same magic ever again, but I think as long as you try, like, and go into a movie with an open mind, it can still be great and at least take you to the galaxy far, far away. Maybe not in the same fashion, but at least to an extent.
Absolutely. It's so funny. This just kind of popped in my mind, but right now trying to sell the house, I got this guy coming in looking, he's doing this radon mitigation. It's whatever, long story, but he's an old timer, right? And he comes down in the studio, down in the basement, and he says, "So you like Star Wars, huh?" There is Star Wars everywhere. It's like I should have made it real awkward. Like I have no idea what you're talking about. What are you talking about? That's Star Wars. But he's just like, so you like Star Wars? Like, absolutely. And he saw the original Star Wars in theaters, I think in Pennsylvania. And he said, and I asked him, I said, did you love him? Were you hooked from the start? And he said, yeah, absolutely. He said, but those, the next three there, he's like, I just couldn't connect with those in the prequels. And I was like, oh, cool. He's like, I'll tell you one thing, these new ones, they're pretty interesting. So even, someone who, it's interesting too. He didn't really appreciate, the 90s stuff, and I can get why, but even, someone in their mid 60s, these newer films still hooked them, and we just had a good laugh about it. But so yeah, I don't know, different generations, I don't know. There's also so much other Star Wars out there that's captivating people now that never existed with the Clone Wars and Rebels and Resistance. It's a fantastic time. But I thought that was really fascinating. That guy, just had to come down to the basement and break a little bread. Should have just pulled out a microphone and said, "Hey, you interested in doing an episode right now, old timer?" But yeah, shout out to that guy, Carrie. But so Jory, how about you, man? Do you look at it? Does it feel like 9 films? Like, this is Star Wars. I'm getting the box set. Like, this is Star Wars.
Oh, definitely. And I hate to go down this too. The people that say this is not my Star Wars, just need to get a grip.
Let's go.
I mean, all the movies are your Star Wars.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I lean on, no matter what fandom I'm in, is I'm a consumer.
Yeah.
I'm a consumer. I am not a producer. I'm not a writer. I am not anything to do with creative. Don't get me wrong. I still have my things that I want, that I would like to see. But if you don't like it, like in my opinion, and I don't mean this in an absolute terrible way, but like, it doesn't matter what you think.
Exactly.
It truly doesn't. Like, I love all 9 films. I truly do. I love all 9 films for their own reasons. Even, episode 2, which is probably my least favorite on out of every film. I still love the film because it's still Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I think that the sequel trilogy, especially for the older generation, they are okay with the sequel trilogy because of 7 and 9.
Yeah.
8 kind of threw him off.
Yeah.
It really did. Like, and kind of going back to my dad, he was a big, like, we got out of 8 because my dad and I have watched every so 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9 together. And he got out of 8 and he was like, ooh, I don't know. And I actually showed him the old Rebel Watch, in defense of. And it kind of actually helped him.
Nice.
It kind of helped him out to be like, hey, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But 7 and 9 really resonate with the OT fans because they are very similar to the original trilogy.
Yeah.
7 obviously was, I don't want to say a carbon copy of 4, but it was very similar. I mean, if you take the story, it's a similar story, just with better graphics, better everything, know. And then 9 was a similar story to 6, and it did have different takes on things, but it really was. It was a similar story right to 6, and the whole trilogy, or I guess I don't really know what we want to call the whole box set of 1 through 9, just really, it's great. The whole story is phenomenal. Whether you agree with how it ends or not, it's still your Star Wars, and it's still great.
Yeah. Every trilogy, there's something for everyone. I mean, there's darkness. There's love stories. There's so much in there. And like, I feel like all of them are people's. That's everyone's Star Wars. There's something in there for everyone. If you hate droids, well, I don't know what to tell you. They're throughout the series. But speaking of droids, it's really funny. Droids are getting a lot of appreciation in new canon. I mean, every book you pick up, even Phasma has, sympathy for droids. That's a whole nother podcast. But remind me, guys, on the next I don't know if we're calling this a council session. I'm not sure. It hasn't been tagged yet, but we'll think of something to call these sessions. But that remind me, we're going to talk about that at some point because there's a shift in droids and new canon. But so I want to ask you guys something too. So just today, Star Wars theory. Love Star Wars theory. Don't always agree with him. Love the guy though. Love the content. I love
phenomenal.
his passion. Love just daily. He can talk about it just like us. But one thing he said today I had to disagree with. Because it was my favorite part of the Rise of Skywalker. And it's when I burst into tears. And it's when Ben Solo, has the memory of his father. It was so well written, in my opinion. It made so much sense. It just was so emotional. And to me, in order for Ben Solo to actually be redeemed in that arc, he had to have the forgiveness of his father. However, Star Wars theory thinks that Anakin should have been there in that moment to try to convince or redeem Ben Solo. And I couldn't disagree with it more. So, Nettie, I want to bring it to you. I'm just going to go ahead and assume it's everyone's favorite moment of The Rise of Skywalker. And I won't do that. But, I mean, powerful moment. Did it hit for you? Do you think Anakin in that moment would have been, effective? Or should he have been somewhere else? Or was he even necessary at all, I guess?
Yeah, say, as terms of that scene as itself, I loved it. It probably is my favorite scene from that movie.
Yeah.
Besides maybe some of the cool part with Palpatine shooting lightning into the sky, maybe.
Yeah.
But see, I've talked about on Facebook before how I think the scene with Ben Solo or Kylo Ren at that point, I guess,
Yeah.
and Han Solo in The Force Awakens is one of the best shot scenes,
Yeah.
probably in any Star Wars.
I
So I
agree.
really liked how they paralleled that so much, and I didn't catch it the first time, but the end of it when he's choked up and he says "Dad" and trails off, and he says "I know." That's a
You're gonna
callback.
get me
to
emotional, Nettie.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to mute myself.
Yeah, so just that moment, I didn't want Ben Demption, but I think that moment made me okay with it. That I was like, okay, I can respect this. In terms of having Anakin in that scene, I haven't seen this video, so I don't know his case.
Yeah.
But I could see it just because, Kylo was, thinking he was following Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have liked it as much, just because, like I said, all those parallels I thought were phenomenal.
Yeah.
If they were going to put Anakin in the movie at all, I think the Force Ghost moment at the end, or the Force Voice, they should have had Ghost there. I think that would have been a really cool moment, but I guess that was more with Rey than Ben. But yes, overall, I thought that scene was great. So
Absolutely. Yeah. God, you're absolutely right, because there's weird things I love about that scene. It's like the final confrontation in Episode 6 with Vader and Luke. It's the way the scene is shot, the music. There's almost is there like a fog or there's something there that the lightsabers are kind of, the colors are it's just the way it's filmed and the sound of everything and the emotion. It makes it one of my it's my favorite scene of all of Star Wars. But you're absolutely right, and I couldn't agree with you more. It may be up there with that moment, but it's weird things too. It's like it's complete. It's one of the only moments in the entire saga where it's complete silence, and you just hear water droplets going off of Ben's vest, and him and Rey are just kind of staring at each other. It's like, what the hell have I done? And the way whoever wrote this scene, when, like you said, I'm gonna get emotional thinking about when he says "Dad," and they bring back Han Solo's most famous line in all of Star Wars, and he just says "I know," which was complete, just offhanded, Harrison Ford, comment. I think whoever director of 5, Kirshner, I think, I can't even remember his name. He just said, just do whatever you need to do. And he went in and she said, I love you. He said, I know. And then they bring it back in. I mean, it's great storytelling. You're right. It's one of my favorite moments in Star Wars. Now that I think about it, it's up there with Vader and Luke in their final confrontation, which I never thought that would happen, but that is such a fantastic scene. But Jory, could you use Anakin in The Rise of Skywalker? If so, do you think he would have been effective in that moment? And I'm only thinking of this right now is because I saw Star Wars Theory talking about it today. Would that have been effective, or did you like what we got?
Oh, it definitely would have been effective. But in the same, I feel like they were trying to keep things under wrap.
Yeah.
And if Hayden shows up, it's a pretty obvious, hey, he's going to be in, and they can't keep that under wraps.
Yeah.
And so, don't get me wrong, I wanted to see Hayden in this.
Yeah.
I love Hayden Christensen. I love what he's done since. I mean, it hasn't been much.
Yeah.
But I feel like they wanted to really keep this episode 9 really tight to the chest.
Yeah.
And and there was these leaks about, they had Hayden and Samuel L. Jackson, and they had I want to say they had a few other people. I forget now who all they said was in the supposed was they were going to be all these Force ghosts in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
And it would have been amazing to see, but in the same, it would have been the logistics of it would have been crazy for them. And they have people showing up on set. You have all these people leaking out like, oh, Hayden's on set, Samuel L. is on set.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would have been very obvious as to what they were doing, and I think they just really wanted to keep it close to the chest.
Yeah, I could, yeah, because I mean the death scene with Han Solo, there were only a few people present for that. Like it was very closed doors, and yeah, I could see there. I mean, remember the speculation of Hayden Christensen and Ian McDiarmid going to a freaking comic convention, and Disney ended up kind of shutting it down or something. Everyone's like, oh, that must mean that they're filming. Like they're total. It's like easy, man. You don't know that. So maybe they were planning something like that, but I do agree. I think something at the end, with the Force Ghost, I definitely thought we were gonna get that, but something it was very effective the way that all of them kind of came together, and in that moment, because it didn't feel like anyone was going to intervene. I never really thought that Anakin was going to intervene because George Lucas thought about doing that in the original trilogy and ended up saying, no, they can't intervene, they can't do anything like that. But then again, Yoda and his lightning, not Force lightning. That's don't want to say that because it wasn't coming out of his fingers, but phrasing. But you had to happen. You know what I'm saying?
There it is. All right, I'll be back, boys.
All right, buddy. But Nate, I want to ask you, man. So we appreciate this 9 films we have, right? And it now looks like we're going in a direction of television. Film or television, what is it that you want to see in the future of Star Wars? Maybe not even like immediately, but like in the future, if Disney's going to do something, say, Nettie, what is it that you want? If we gave you a trilogy, let's say even, or a series of some sort, what is it that you're writing?
Oh, man. I don't even know how to answer that. Let's say I'm stoked for the Obi-Wan series, definitely for that. Man, I don't even know where I would go. Say, part of me wants to see more where Rey goes, with that sweet new lightsaber.
Yeah.
But I also think, going back to the Old Republic could be great.
Yeah.
Say, I've actually, compared to a lot of Star Wars fans, I'm probably not that huge of an Old Republic fan, just because I've never actually played through all of Knights of the Old Republic. I've never played the MMO. I just listened to some of the audiobooks, but just even those made that world so cool, and I think going back to that would definitely be really awesome, and there was so much time there you could explore.
Yeah.
So that'd probably be what I would say. At the same time, I'm a little hesitant about that just because how many fans love that series, though they're
Yeah.
not going to be happy no matter what Disney does. But
You're
I think
absolutely
that's
right.
just Star Wars in general. So,
That's
um,
a great point. That's
yeah,
a great point because there is, because they went forward, right? They went from episode 6 to 7, started delving in that timeline, and you have novels, the stories completely changed. None of it's canon anymore, and so many people are upset by that. And like you said, if you go back, and you could just say it doesn't even have to be Old Republic times, even with the timeline. It could just be we're going prequels, and they're going to come out with a story, and people are going to say like, "Where's Revan? Where's the Sith Emperor? Where's all these characters? Where's Malgus? There's always going to be that issue since this universe has expanded, in the 90s with the books, and then we go back and we make a video game series about the Old Republic, and then we expand upon that with more novels. It kind of feels like wherever we go, there's going to be people or they're going to be complaining. So you're right. So it makes me wonder if they actually will. Do you think they'll actually bring any of those characters back? I mean, they did with Thrawn, right? Like, so we got a completely different timeline with Thrawn, but a Revan, but maybe even earlier, or maybe they would even bring back Yoda and kind of look at his origins, or are we saving that for the Mandalorian? I don't know.
yep. I say
Right?
I honestly don't know. See, I think there's an Easter egg in Last Jedi. There's like a kyber crystal in Luke's hut, and
Yeah.
people were like looking at like the visual dictionary and like what they called it, and that they thought it was a connection to Revan. And I don't know enough about Revan to know if that's
Yeah.
true, but
Yeah.
and then I forget the name of the guy, but they confirmed another Sith from like EU as canon for the
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker. So I think
Yeah.
they're bringing in hints of it at least a little bit. That's part of what's making me wonder if maybe that's where we are headed next.
Yeah.
And since you mentioned Thrawn, I definitely say spoilers for Rebels here, but I
Yeah.
want to know what happened to Ezra and Thrawn. I want to know the
Yes.
next part of that chapter, especially Thrawn. Like, um, Thrawn might be one of my favorite like characters,
Yeah.
period. And I never read the original Thrawn trilogy until it's been within a year, so it's not like I have nostalgia for him. But like him in Rebels and then the new Thrawn trilogy was fantastic, and
Yeah.
I just like that character a lot. I really want to see more of him, and I know
Yeah.
we're getting a prequel series, but I want to see going forward too. So
Absolutely, yeah. It's amazing what they did to take that character and stay so true to his character and his characteristics and his personality, and it's just his very computed way of thinking and being very logical. I love that they took that and said, you know what, we're putting it in a different timeline. I thought that was fantastic and somewhat original in its own mind, but I think they could do that again, and you could win over fans that love those characters. We'll just have to accept that Disney has this product. There's no way they're going to recanonize any of that stuff, but they're going to take those elements that you love, that like Thrawn, staples of the expanded universe of Star Wars, and bring it home for you, bring it in to their new canon stuff, and make it work within it. I think they could totally do that. And so when they talk about the High Republic era, it's like what, 400 years before the prequels or something like that. So who knows? You may get Yoda. There may be a Revan of sorts, or I don't think it would necessarily be the origins of the Jedi or the Sith, but a different time. I'm sure the same technology, right? Because it seems like Star Wars technology never advances. I was thinking about that reading the Old Republic books. I'm like, you're using the same technology. Like, and it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years later. Like, what are we doing? You're still using holograms. You're still using all this stuff. So it's gonna feel like Star Wars, but it'll be different times with maybe some familiar characters. And they do such a great job, like with I mean, let's be honest. The Mandalorian is, Boba Fett of the Christmas special, like the holiday special. That's pretty much what we got. And we got an IG-88, an IG-11, and they found a way to make it work. And I mean, it's a beloved show now in all of Star Wars. I can't believe they did it. But I mean, so much so is like I thought it was IG-88 the whole time. I think I was calling him IG-88 up until the freaking show started. And was like, it's IG-11. I'm like, get out of here, nerds. I don't need you correcting me. He's an IG droid. It's the same thing. But yeah, so they're doing a great job of that, to just take that and let's put it into film now. We've done it with Rebels. We've done it with The Mandalorian. Let's make that happen in a feature film. And I know a lot of people are really stoked about the television, and so am I. I totally am as well. But film is Star Wars, feature films. I go get a large corn, large Coke, and I just am immersed in it, with Dolby sound around me. And I'm going to love that. And I would love to see The Mandalorian on the big screen. That would just even make it feel more like Star Wars. So I am excited about the future. Now, so you're not sure, maybe you would go back in time, right?
Yeah.
Is there a certain, I don't even know if you call it a genre, but like a style, so you got Rogue One, kind of a war film.
Yep.
You got The Mandalorian, which is, it has those Western elements to it. Is there something that you're looking for specifically that's really gonna ice that cake for you?
Yeah. See, this is a hard question, especially since I think I posed it once before.
You did, my friend.
See, the problem with me is my two favorite genres are fantasy and sci-fi.
Yeah.
Which that's Star Wars in the
Star
basics.
Wars. Yep.
So
Yep.
I think it's a hard one for me. I think I don't know if it'd be my top choice, but I think like a horror movie would be interesting to explore. And I know there's some books like that.
Yeah.
That are EU now that I have, but I haven't read them yet.
Yeah.
So I think that could be really cool. Other genres, I don't even know.
So they did that with The Mandalorian, right? That I don't even, what was it, episode 6 or something like that?
Yeah.
Right? That was one of my favorite episodes, just the way it was shot, and it was tense, and it was the first moment for me that, like, the Mando was in control. Like, he's whooped some butt, but that moment, I was like, that dude's in control, and he's going to take all these guys down. But it was just, but there's still horror elements. It was just kind of spooky and eerie at times. So I think that's a fantastic idea. Is there, I don't know, would it be a Force kind of focused movie, or would you like to see something different? Would it involve Force users as it's kind of a horror flick, or?
That's a good question. We could do some interesting things with the Force in a horror movie.
Right.
Yeah, I think it could work either way. I mean, even just, the technology that's in the Star Wars universe, I think could be amazing in a horror movie. I mean, isn't there an episode of Clone Wars where, like, Obi-Wan completely changes his face with, like, an ejection or something like that?
Oh, yeah. What?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's been years since I watched it, but you're right.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that in my rewatch, so.
Same. No, it reminds me of Harry Potter, like freaking the Bolly juice, or I don't know what the hell it is. Harry Potter knowledge isn't very vast, but yeah, you're right. They could do something like that. I'm just like picturing like Coruscant, right? And just the power goes out. Like there's there's an energy crisis or something. And I'm not a big fan of, like the God, what are those? The horror movies where it's like one day of no laws or anything like lawlessness.
Oh, the Purge.
The Purge.
And
but I could see that working in Star Wars, and it's just like a power grab at that point. That would be, God, that's kind of like an end of days Star Wars movie. Which, I mean, it feels like we've had a few of those with the Death Star and things like that. But, I mean, those moments are so removed. I mean, Alderaan blows up, right? The New Republic blows up. But it feels so removed. But just like a kind of end of days Star Wars horror movie. I don't know. I think we need to write this. I think we need to write this film, right? I I'm just what's I love so much about I loved Rogue One for the kind of the war side of things. I thought that was fantastic in the final third of the movie. I mean, they got 3 different action scenes going on. It flowed so great, and I loved everything about it. But I am so excited to learn more about Cassian and his spy ways, right? Like, I mean, the dude is gifted, and we see a little bit of that in Rogue One. But I want to see a spy film. I want this to be, if it's a television series, that's fine, and we're supposed to be getting it. But I want it to be really spy heavy. I mean, I'm feeling like a Captain America Winter Soldier kind of, you know what I'm saying? Kind of that Bourne, series feel. I think they could do something with that, right? Right? But still bring in the comedic elements, with K2 and Cassian. And I think, honestly, Taika Waititi would be. I loved what he did in the final episode of The Mandalorian. Right? Like, even the humor to be. I know that was off-putting for some people, but those two stormtroopers, I was like, dude, or scout troopers, I was like, dude, that's hilarious. Like, that's K2 Cassian humor, and that's why isn't this guy directing that? And maybe he eventually will, but
wasn't there rumors he was getting a film series or something recently?
Yes. And people were speculating maybe Kevin Feige's film that he's making, because they have that relationship with Marvel. I'd pay to see it. I mean, I'll pay to see any Star Wars, but Kevin Feige writing something and finding ways to bring it into Star Wars and with Taika I'm sold. But I could see him doing a spy show, and but with Cassian, I feel like we could go more than 6 episodes with Obi-Wan. I feel like we could do a couple seasons of that maybe, and just learn more, their sacrifices and all that good stuff, and dig a little more into the Empire. I know we have a comic book with Cassian and K2, but I don't know if that was enough for me, and how they met and stuff. I need that to be fleshed out a little more. But we are getting the Obi-Wan series, right? You're excited about that, am I right?
Oh yeah, yep, definitely.
What are you wanting out of that, my friend? What are you wanting out of that?
That's a hard question. They're so constrained. I feel just like, Obi-Wan's not just. I mean, I guess he could, but I feel like Obi-Wan wouldn't just up and leave Tatooine with Luke there.
Yeah.
So it's such a hard period. Say, I know it's the Legends Kenobi book. I got through that recently.
Yeah.
And that had a lot of interesting elements I think they could bring in. And that actually addressed some of not necessarily plot holes, but like pinpricks people wanted to make fun of between 3 and 4, like how Obi-Wan aged so much. Like it kind of touched on that in the book. So I think taking some references from that book would be great. Outside of that, I mean, I'm just excited to see Ian McGregor again. I know he loves that character so much.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Do you think that we could have any Vader in that?
Yeah, I've heard rumors about that. Personally, I don't really want Vader, just because I like the idea of I guess let me rephrase that. I don't want Obi-Wan and Vader to see each other.
Yeah.
Because I kind of like the idea of it's episode 3, and then the next time they meet, it's episode 4. Great. I know technically that's not confirmed, but I kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
I will say, if they meet face to face, I would love for Obi-Wan just to stare Vader down and call him Anakin. I think that would be such a power move.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah.
But if they do Vader kind of like a side story along with it, I think that could be interesting. I mean, I'm always down for more Vader. He's one of the most badass characters in cinema history. So.
Right. And I don't know if you've been reading any of the comic books or the last Vader line, but I mean, we really delved into his thoughts and maybe some regrets. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see in a show. I want to see that I want to see him dig into hit and even Obi-Wan regrets, like flashbacks, like what could I have done to save him? Is the galaxy now lost because I failed to lead this man to in his moments of darkness, not just push it aside and say, remember your training, but to look at him like a brother, like a son. I want them to do that, but like you, I don't want those two to see each other. But I want the thought process. I want them to delve into it, but I don't want them interacting because it's so special. They last see each other in 3, and then he comes back in 4. Before I was but the learner, now I am the master. And it's just like, man, if you're going to try to, I hate saying retcon it, but retcon it to fit in a show, I just feel like that's going to, they've done some of that with Luke and Vader in the main comic line, and it's okay, but it takes a little bit away from that movie when they meet each other and they confront each other for the first time. I mean, Luke gets his butt whooped, which is great because he should. But it didn't, it took a little bit away from the movies for me. So I'm excited for Obi-Wan. I have no idea what we're getting. But I'm trying to think, who could that villain be? It can't just be a bunch of kind of randos. It feels like it's Obi-Wan. He's one of the greatest Jedi of all time. We need a a competent villain for this. So I'm all for him and Vader and their thought process, the regrets, the hatred, the loss. But I don't want them to see each other. Jory, Nate and I have talked a lot in your absence. I'm glad you're back, by the way. But so we talked a little bit about the Star Wars saga, and we're now talking about what Nate would like to see now. Now that Star Wars, the saga's ended, where are we going now? We've talked about Cassian. I'd love to see a really heavy spy Cassian series with K2 and their origins together with Taika Waititi directing it. And I want that. I want it to be similar to Winter Soldier, Captain Marvel, Captain America. I mean, Captain Marvel's a great movie, but Captain America, Winter Soldier, or the Bourne series, or something like that. And Nettie's even thinking maybe we can go back in time, though we know that a lot of people are going to be dissatisfied by that when their characters are changed or the story's completely different. Because we thought, you go forward, you go backward, people are going to get mad. But that's just the reality of having a ton of Star Wars content out there outside of the movies. But where would you take us, Jory? Are we going back? Are we going to the future? Are we going with Obi-Wan on Tatooine, playing checkers? Like, where are we going? What's going to be the next big hit in Star Wars outside of The Mandalorian? If you were writing it, where are we going?
So it looks like, to me, where the Cassian series is going is possibly comedy. Especially with Taika Waititi taking over, that whole series. It definitely looks probably more comedy, and K2 is going to be huge for that.
Yeah.
I think that he was one of the funniest droids that we've ever had.
Yeah.
Barring C-3PO with his dry humor, which I don't think he gets enough credit for.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I think that that K2 is going to be huge for that whole series. And I definitely think, because we kind of talked about before we did this whole thing of maybe the genre for all of the series coming up, or even the blockbuster movies.
Yeah.
I think the Cassian series will be a little more comedy based.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Now, with the Obi-Wan series, I mean, they just put that on a hold, which I'm sure that you guys probably discussed.
Yeah.
But I don't really know where I see that particular series going as far as like a genre.
Yeah.
With Mandalorian, obviously, it was more of a Western type movie. But with the Obi-Wan, I don't know. I mean, Ewan McGregor is funny in his own rights.
Mm-hmm.
His humor is just I find almost any genre of humor funny.
Yeah.
Like top to bottom, most drastic to, the driest humor is just everything to me is funny.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't really know where they're gonna go as far as the Obi-Wan series, as far as a genre. Um, but where I want to see Star Wars going, I think it would be phenomenal seeing uh, the new characters that they establish come back.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening. I really
It's
don't,
unfortunate.
unfortunately. But the sequel trilogy, it almost took 3 movies to establish those characters.
Yeah.
And with that, it would be amazing to see them continue. Because I just fell in love with Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
I just fell in love with Finn and Poe and Rey and them as true characters. And I feel like it took almost 3 movies to do that for me.
Yeah.
And to have me wanting more. I mean, obviously I wanted 9, I wanted 8, I wanted it all.
Yeah.
But to see them as characters and to really truly enjoy them, it took those 3 movies. And so it leaves me wanting more and wanting, to have a number 10, a number 11, a number 12.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take till 20.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I don't see it happening. So I feel like they're gonna have to definitely do spin-offs. And they'll go backwards in time. I don't think they'll go forwards in time. I truly don't, because I think that they're gonna leave it up to 10 years, 20 years coming back, possibly to Ray, to Finn, to Poe, whoever agrees to come back and do another trilogy, just like they've done, in the past 10 years, in the past 30 years, in the past 40 years. So I don't think they're going to touch the Skywalker saga timeline. But I do think that they'll go back in time. It would be awesome to see Knights of the Old Republic. It would be awesome to see my big one, my huge EU fandom is in Bane. I think that Darth Bane was phenomenal. If anybody has not read the Bane trilogy, that is quite possibly my favorite trilogy as far as the books go. I think that the writing was phenomenal. I think that the thought process behind Bane and what you get to see in his character and where he came from to where he was, it's done extremely well. And I mean, Disney would have its own spin-off on it. It would do it its own way, but the original EU stuff was great. And I actually have those audiobooks right on my phone, and I still listen to them to this day.
And it's something that even the more general Star Wars fan base or public audience would even probably appreciate, because they know there's only a couple of Sith, right? Don't 2, no more, no less. They've heard that, and to show why and how, and that there were things before that. I think it would resonate a lot with them, and it may be messing with timelines. It may be even messing with characters. They definitely probably will never canonize those books, but they've been successful in taking elements of those characters and stories and fitting them where it works, and people love it. They love Thrawn. We were talking about in The Mandalorian. I mean, essentially the Mando is Boba Fett from the holiday special, and IG-11 is IG-88. They've made it work, and people accept it, and they love it because they're getting the character that they loved. And that's really what you fall in love with when you're reading those books, is those characters and those moments. And if it's in a different time period, so be it. You're getting what you love, though. So I couldn't agree more. That would be a fantastic timeline. And I don't know where we're going. I have no idea. And I was accepting when The Rise of Skywalker came out. I had accepted and said, I know that they're never going to make any more Skywalker movies. I know that Rey's story is going to be done after this. But when she lit up that lightsaber at the end of the movie, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? And I just had so much pain. And I was like, no, now I want to know what happens. I love these characters. Please come back to them. But I know that, you know, some people are concerned with the response of this new trilogy, and will they ever do it again? If they do, like you said, Jory, it's going to be in the future. But man, the end of that movie made me want more Rey and to see where we're going. And I think we mentioned it in one of our last podcasts, but talking about that Tor Valum character, that ancient, powerful Sith, like let's look at some characters that maybe, you know, survived a rule of two, or, you know, was out, you know, in the universe unknown by anyone else, and it is as powerful as the Sith Emperor. Like, let's do something like that, and Rey has to rise to the occasion with her new Jedi. I'm down. Even if it's a show or a game or whatever, I just want that story. But going back in time, it seems like it's a safe bet because they're going to want to win over a lot of sweaties. But they may not get exactly what they want. But I think they'll bring in something familiar, because I think that's what they think probably is needed at this time. Though I don't necessarily agree with that. But gosh, what else, guys? I mean, I could talk. I mean, we've been going for an hour and 30 minutes, 38 minutes. I could go all night, but like I'm the only one here that doesn't have a life. I know you guys do. But this honestly,
No life here.
I can say honestly, this is one of the best conversations that I've ever had. And what's great about doing this is that we all have talked before. We've never talked like this, but we talk almost every day, right? I mean, I know what you guys like about Star Wars. I know what you don't necessarily like about Star Wars. I feel like I know you guys already, even though this is the first time we've verbally communicated with each other. But that's what this community has done, and I could not be more proud to be a part of it. But it's honestly you guys and your positivity and just the camaraderie that's there in that group is because of you guys. I just created a group. Like, that's all I did. And you guys came to it and you guys grew it. And it's just like Brent. Like Brent just said, hey, I'm getting the list together of everyone's favorites. He's got an average, like what's the top one in the group. And that is freaking great. Like, no one even asked you to do that. You just wanted to do that. And that's awesome. Like, it's just, you guys are always doing such great things, and it means so much to me that it's just a living thing now. It lives and breathes you guys and your positivity. And now I want to bring that into our actual discussions. And whenever I can round you guys up in a tap room sometime and bring a microphone, we're all gonna freaking have a beer and freaking talk about Star Wars in person. But for now, we're gonna do it on Skype, and we're gonna keep doing it. And I know everyone listening enjoyed it. I could have not talked the whole time and just listened to you guys talk. But we're gonna keep doing this, and you know, as long as you guys are willing, we're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna keep doing these special monthly episodes, and we're also gonna be doing some trials. And I gotta talk to these guys offline and ask, are we gonna see a little exhibition match here? I won't make them speak now, but we're gonna talk about it. So, hey guys, any last words? Anything else you want to say?
No, I don't want to test Nate's knowledge, because I feel like he's going to possibly sweep me under the rug. But going back to what you were just saying about the community, Mike, I don't think you give yourself enough credit, because it's huge what you've done for us, what you've done for the community. And yes, you just put together a podcast and other people did join it. Don't get me wrong. And everybody else definitely contributes to that community. But if it wasn't for you and Ez in the beginning, putting this together, there would be no community. And not this community. There'd be other communities. Don't get me wrong. But I love this community, and I love what just being able to click into Flying Casual on my Facebook every day, and see what everybody has to say, good or bad, about
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
But even the bad makes you learn.
That's right.
It takes you in a different perspective of what's going on here, and what other people are thinking about here and there.
Yeah.
And giving you just that different look on, hey, is this good, or is it bad, or is it whatever? I mean, it's all Star Wars, so we all love it, or
Yeah.
most of us love it.
Yeah.
But don't sell yourself short,
Ah.
man. It's what you've done has been, I can't even explain to you what it's done for my own personal story. And the community that it has brought, and what it has just given me personally, is something that I can't even put into words.
Dude, that is the most humbling thing I've ever heard in my life, and the kindest. And that's the caliber of people we have. It's the caliber of people that we're going to continue to attract, because we've had people come in and talk a lot of stuff, or we're trying to nitpick into things, and what's happening in whose life, and or this, I can't believe you like this about this movie. Those people are gone. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but the people that love what we've built are here, and they're inviting their friends, and it's going to continue to grow. And I cannot wait to just spend as long as I'm capable of talking about Star Wars and interact with everyone. Every day I'm grateful we get to do that, and it's literally the kindness of you guys, and your willingness to participate in that, and even like now, like donating your hard-earned money to something like this to keep things going for us. It means the world to us, and it's easy to sound a certain way if you got a microphone or something, but I hope it comes through my appreciation for you guys. And I'm speaking for Holly too, and Luke, that you guys are active participants in this thing, and the only way it's still going, and the only way we're going to continue to do it, is if you guys are doing what you're doing, and I'm going to take that with me everywhere I go, on my own little flying casual tour. And like I said, we are going to get some, if we got to find the location where we all meet in the middle, have one beer and some conversation, we're going to do that, because you guys are honestly friends. I can easily say that. Even that's our first interaction, I can honestly say you guys are my friends. I mean, when I say Nettie or Jory, Holly knows who the hell I'm talking about. My friends know who I'm talking about. My coworkers know who I'm talking about. They all have just been taken aback by the community that we have, and it makes people envious. They want that, and I hope we continue to attract that, and continue to attract people like you guys, because you're some of the nicest, kindest, just most courteous people I know, and I'm gonna continue to honor that, and we're gonna continue to celebrate it in every format that we can, and this is being one of them. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Give Nate and Jory some love. Get on that group. Tell them how much you love them. And show some love to the podcast too. If you like it, check out Patreon. Come participate with us. Go like, subscribe, do all the needful. If you don't, that's fine too. Just keep listening. But I know you like this. We're going to keep doing this. And that's it. So hit us up, shoot us an email, go to the Facebook page, hit up Nate and Jory. Come join our family. It's casual, but it's family. I'll tell you that. That may be the slogan. It's casual, but it's family. I like it. We're going to stick with it. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. And may the force be with you always.